In a future where humanity confronts the formidable Vorans at a pivotal diplomatic station, Captain Ethan Grayson steps into a perilous ritual meant to unite two worlds. As hope intertwines with fear, Ethan's heart races for what lies ahead with Ariella, the Vora representative. Will courage and connection overcome the darkness woven into their destinies? Choices may shape their universe forever. Don't forget to subscribe. 91% of viewers enjoy our content but forget to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll stay up to date with our daily sci-fi stories and support a dedicated team of storytellers and content creators who rely on this as their livelihood. The lunar landscape stretched like a vast, velvet tapestry, dusted with a layer of mute gray, its surface interrupted only by the glistening brilliance of the diplomatic station. What? A monumental structure that loomed against the charcoal sky. Its architecture reflected an intricate fusion of human and Vora design, with sleek surfaces accentuated by flowing lines of bioluminescence. Each carefully crafted element whispered tales of peace and ambition, of civilizations daring to converge. Inside the grand hall of the station, an atmosphere thick with anticipation hummed like a vibrant symphony. Dignitaries from various planets mingled beneath ornate luminescent chandeliers, their reflections dancing across polished surfaces. The room pulsed with a blend of exotic aromas and melodic conversations, creating an intoxicating backdrop for the historic event that was about to unfold. Captain Ethan Grayson stood center stage, nervously adjusting his crisp, military uniform that carried the insignia of the United Earth Coalition. He was a tall man, with tousled chestnut hair and deep blue eyes that sparkled with determination yet hinted at the simmering apprehensions within. Beneath the surface, the grit from years of rigorous training conflicted with the weight of expectation resting on his shoulders. He had spent years preparing for this moment, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to represent humanity in the ancient Vora ritual of connection. Just then, his attention was seized by the imposing figure of Ariella, the Vora representative. Her striking height and ethereal presence commanded the space around her. Her skin was a lustrous shade of deep emerald, which shimmered under the chandeliers like the rarest of jewels. The vivid markings that adorned her face spoke of her lineage and culture, while her eyes, a penetrating shade of emerald, glimmered with wisdom and authority. Yet they were also fraught with skepticism. She observed Ethan with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. "Ariella, I presume," he ventured, trying to project a confidence he barely felt amidst the overwhelming expectations of the evening and the weight of her gaze. "Captain Grayson," she replied coolly, her voice a melodic chime that echoed throughout the hall, masking an undertone of disapproval. "Do you truly understand the risks you take? Many have perished in the quest for connection." Her words hung in the air, heavy and impartial like the gravity of the moon. Ethan felt a pang of doubt break through his resolute facade, yet he straightened his posture, steeling himself against the storm of uncertainty. "I must try. If we are to build a future together, this bond is essential," he countered, his voice rising against the clamor around them. Ariella's eyes narrowed slightly, reflecting the light swirling above them. There was a flicker, a moment where her skepticism faltered, her gaze softening just a fraction. "Not just for you, but for all of your kind," she responded, her tone a mix of challenge and veiled encouragement. Ethan's heart raced, the realization hitting him that he stood on the precipice of something monumental, yet terrifying. The stakes had never been higher. Around them, groups of delegates buzzed in fervent discussions, some casting wary glances their way. Ethan's resolve solidified. He needed to show that humanity could match the Vora's might, not through displays of power but through understanding. As the ceremony commenced, the intricate rituals of the Vora unfolded with elegance. The soft hum of machinery enveloped the diplomatic station, creating an atmosphere of cautious tranquility. Yet, as night settled over the lunar surface, the serene ambiance morphed into a gripping tension. Shadows flitted across the metallic walls adorned with holographic displays of intergalactic flora, and the echoes of distant chatter among dignitaries faded into an eerie silence. Captain Ethan Grayson could feel the pulse of anxiety throbbing in his chest, the kind that foretold of upheaval. Within the control room, the air buzzed with uncertainty as the lights suddenly flickered and alarms blared. A sharp, piercing siren cut through the haze like a knife, sending shockwaves of panic throughout the station. "What's happening?" Ethan demanded. Confusion etched across his face as he swiveled to face Ariella, the fierce Vora representative beside him. Her elegant demeanor shifted instantly into one of calculated alertness. "Renegade hunters," she declared, gritting her teeth as she peered through the control panel's displays. "They've breached the outer defenses. We must act quickly." Ethan's heart raced as he glanced at the endless rows of buttons and screens, their glowing interfaces pulsating with urgent information. "Can we lock down the station?" "It's too late for that," she replied sharply, her brows furrowing in concentration. "These attackers are skilled. Their motive is clear. They wish to dismantle the Vora-human alliance before it even begins. It's a sabotage of historic proportions." He felt the weight of that threat settle heavily on his shoulders. The ritual was humanity's last thread of hope. For the alliance to work, both species need to trust one another. And now, that fragile trust hung in the balance at the hands of those who thrived on hatred and division. "Calm your mind, human," Ariella urged, her voice taut but steady, as she sensed his mounting panic. "We have a chance to stop them, but we need to think strategically." "What do you propose?" he asked, determination hardening his resolve. "Tracking down their transmission signals. Communication is key to undermining their plans." With swift precision, Ariella's fingers danced across the console, reconfiguring the complex data streams. "We can gather intel on their leaders, identify their location." Ethan leaned in, entranced by her focus and expertise. "Right. Let's find them before they can inflict any damage." Together, they studied the luminous screens, lines of code and data, flowing like a river of potential strategy. Each tick of the clock weighed heavily on their minds, the threat outside growing nearer. As they plotted, the control room shook with the force of distant explosions, vibrational waves rippling through the station, sending a cascade of sparks from the overhead lights. It wasn't long before they caught a flickering glimpse on the monitor. The renegade hunters storming through the hallways, weapons drawn, their faces concealed by shadowed masks. "They were engaging the security forces," Ethan observed, a surge of cold fear gripping his spine. "We have to warn them." "No," Ariella shouted, her eyes blazing with intensity. "If they alert the entire station, it will create chaos. We must handle this discreetly. Follow my lead." Ethan nodded, a mix of dread and respect swirling within him. They had to be wary, to combine their strengths. As they crept together through the dimly lit corridors, their footsteps echoing ominously in the stillness. The station had been designed with state-of-the-art security measures, sliding panels, hidden compartments, and emergency exits, features that they now used to their advantage. "Stay low," Ariella whispered, her emerald eyes scanning the shadows. "We need to move undetected. They can easily wipe out our chances of success if we aren't careful." Ethan felt his pulse quicken in response to her commanding presence. This was a dance of survival now, and he felt himself adapting to the rhythm of their hurried movements. Navigating through the narrow passages of the diplomatic station, they reached an observation point overlooking the main atrium. From their concealed perch they could see chaos unleashed. Voices shouted orders, blaster fire crackled, and human and Vora delegates scrambled to find refuge. Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline course through him. He couldn't just stand there. "We have to act now," he pressed, urgency pushing him forward. "Patience," Ariella insisted, grabbing his arm. "We must wait for the opportune moment. Let the attackers spread thin before revealing ourselves." As if on cue, one of the masked hunters stumbled near the central console, giving them their opening. "This is our chance." Ethan's instincts flared, and before Ariella could object, he vaulted over the ledge, landing with a thud on the floor below. "Ethan, no!" Ariella hissed, a warning sound, but she followed suit, her lithe form bounding gracefully after him. Their landing drew the attention of nearby hunters, eyes widening as they spotted the duo. A furious gaze locked onto Ethan, raising a weapon, though it was Ariella whose reflexes kicked into gear first. With feline grace she lunged forward and disarmed the attacker in one deft motion, her combat training evident. "Ethan, help me with them!" she snapped, already engaging in a flurry of strikes, her movements a seamless choreography of skill and intention. Despite adrenaline spurning him forward, Ethan hesitated for a heartbeat, struck by the raw power of her execution. Then he rallied, charging into the fray with the fervor of survival coursing through him. In that moment they became a whirlwind. For every kick Ariella delivered, Ethan matched with punches of his own. They navigated the chaos together, bodies moving in sync as they fought side by side against a common enemy. One hunter fell to the ground, incapacitated under their combined efforts. Beneath the clamor, a pulse of realization struck Ethan. He was part of something greater now. The unity forged between them, running deeper than mere alliances. But amidst the battle, their surroundings were disintegrating into a fracas of destruction. Everything they stood for was now encased in fire and fury. As a renegade swung a blade, a last-ditch effort of desperation, Ariella intercepted, effortlessly redirecting his move before bringing him to the floor. "Focus, Ethan. There's no room for hesitation." Ethan's senses sharpened at her words. He propelled his strength into the final attacker, a smooth movement that ended with the clatter of weapons hitting the floor. In the aftermath, his breath came in short gasps, both exhilarated and exhausted by the fierce immediacy of the skirmish. With the opponent subdued, Ariella turned to him, her expression a paradox of relief and anxiety. As the days unfolded like pages of a forgotten tome, the diplomatic station transformed into a crucible of tension and resilience. Ethan and Ariella found themselves at the intersection of fear and courage, each commanding their respective worlds' hopes and burdens upon their shoulders. The dim lights of the station flickered uncertainly, mirroring the anxiety in both their eyes. Heavy metal clanged against metal as they stood in the training room. The perimeter was lined with holographic projections displaying strategies and maps of the station, each flickering in sync with their rising pulse rates. The air pulsed with a sense of urgency, and with each swing of their training weapons, they struck not just at targets, but also at the weight of their shared destiny. Ethan, sweat glistening on his brow, parried Ariella's strike. She was relentless. He admired her proficiency. Even as doubts loomed over their mission, her determination empowered him. "Focus, Ethan," she exclaimed, her emerald eyes alight with fierce ardor. "Their strength lies in their numbers. If we don't anticipate their moves, the consequences could be fatal." "I know," he replied, suppressing a wince as he blocked another blow. "But we need to integrate more of our strategies, combining both your cunning and my adaptability." Ariella stepped back, breathless yet enthralled by the human's resolve. They exchanged nods, a silent affirmation that they were forging a bond that defied their cultural legacies, each adorned with intricate narratives of strife and survival. As the final training session of the day concluded, the combat simulations faded, replaced by a growing rapport. Over cups of the Voran tonic, a refreshing blend of exotic flora, they laughed and recounted tales of their worlds. Ariella revealed snippets of Vora lore, tales of ancient battles won and lost, while Ethan shared his childhood memories. Summers spent under Earth's blue sky, stars flickering against a velvety backdrop. In their laughter, walls began to crumble. "Your story is magnificent," Ariella told him, her voice softened with a hint of vulnerability. "It reminds me of the resilience we must hold on to amidst the shadows. If we are to face the looming threat, we must create a new narrative, one where the scars of our past become the threads in our shared future." A flicker of understanding passed between them. The weight of their shared fears transformed into a tapestry of unwritten strength. In that moment, Ethan realized how deeply intertwined their fates had become, and together, they resolved to face whatever icy grip the cosmos had reserved for them. But within the shadows, the specter of discontent festered unbeknownst to the duo. Resistance brewed among factions of both human and Vora alike. As whispers spiraled around the station, Ethan and Ariella's bond was perceived as a threat to the very fabric of their civilizations. Multiple beings, envious and fearful of their tentative alliance, began conspiring in murky corners, their plots hidden beneath layers of deceit and hidden agendas. While Ethan and Ariella molded strategies in the safety of the training bay, others spun shadows like webs, ensnaring potential allies and feeding on doubt. One broadcasted message dared to question the sanctity of their union. What could a human truly offer a Vora? While they look to connect, we lose our very essence. Amid such turmoil, Ethan drifted into a fitful sleep one night, positioned within the walls that had once felt secure. Dreams warped the boundaries of reality, swirling into a river of uncertainty that pulled him deeper into darkness. He found himself immersed in a vast expanse of the cosmos, fragmented memories whispering on the edge of his consciousness. Then semblances of Ariella flickered into view, casting shades both bright and dark. Images of their moments echoed within him, the laughter, the training, the growing spark igniting amidst their struggles. But amidst them danced unsettling visions of betrayal and loss. The wailing cries of their people converged into a symphony of anguish, imploring him to question the loyalty of all. He jolted awake, gasping as icy tendrils of apprehension slithered up his spine. As nightmares faded, he realized it was time to demystify the threat lurking in the corridors and to explore the source of trepidation gnawing at their resolve. He needed answers, not just for himself but for Ariella. He found her in the atrium, bathed in the cerulean glow of the station's artificial stars. "Ariella," he began, eyes reflecting a newfound fervor, "I need you to trust me. We have to delve deeper into the diplomatic matrices. There's more at play than we realized." Ariella, framed by the ethereal light, turned towards him, her face imbued with uncertainty. "What are you suggesting?" she asked, her voice steady yet laced with caution. "We need to investigate the discontent ripping through our factions. We must hold a summit. Expose those who conspire against us," Ethan urged, clenching his fists. "We can't allow fear to fracture our connection before it even blossoms." With a moment's pause, Ariella regarded him with a keen gaze. "It is dangerous to confront our own kind within the echoes of rebellion. It could signify the unraveling of everything we sought to protect." Yet in her heart of hearts, Ariella understood the necessity of the plan. Their worlds were teetering on the brink of chaos, and in this moment, trust bloomed anew. "Then we shall face the storm as one," she declared, steeling herself. United, they began to prepare for their summit, forging a session that resonated with electricity, underlining the urgency of their plight. As they outlined strategies, a shared determination emanated from their paired presence. Yet despite the strength of their alliance, deep within the recesses of their minds, the undercurrents of doubt still lurked, casting long shadows over their resolve. The summit date arrived, and the chamber buzzed with a cacophony of representatives from both civilizations. Ethan and Ariella stood united at the front, feeling the weight of 1,000 unspoken truths. Tension tautened the air, simmering beneath the surface, thick enough to choke on. As various factions engaged in heated debates, Ethan and Ariella maintained their composure. They interwove their perspectives, both standing firm against the tide of fear and mistrust that threatened to engulf the gathering. "This is our moment, Ariella," Ethan whispered, resolve building within him. But fear morphed into anger as opposing voices escalated the rhetoric. "You claim to unite us, yet you threaten our very essence," an elder Vora shouted, piercing through their defenses. "This union, it's an affront to our history." Ethan stepped forward, heart pounding. The day of the ritual arrived amidst chaos that echoed through the diplomatic station. Alarms rang out, blaring a war cry that shattered the brittle facade of anticipation that had hung in the air for days. Ethan Grayson stood poised in the grand ceremonial chamber, a vast expanse marked with ancient symbols pulsating above in the glowing ethereal ambiance. The walls shimmered with intricate designs that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the anxious beating of his heart. To his left, Ariella, the imposing Vora representative, prepared herself alongside him, her imposing stature framed against the vibrant colors of the chamber. The air was thick with the scent of anticipation, mingling with the ozone from the energy surges flowing through the ceremonial apparatus, the celestial sphere. This constellatory device, with its spiraling core, glowed with an intensity that mirrored the gravity of the moment they were about to engage in. It was both a connection and a barrier, a piece of technology birthed from the depths of Vora history, capable of merging two souls into one, a gamble of faith in the face of mortal danger. "Are you ready?" Ariella asked, her emerald eyes reflecting the radiant light of the sphere, fierce yet softened with vulnerability. It was a look that haunted him and enchanted him in equal measure, showcasing layers of her complicated identity. "As ready as I'll ever be," Ethan replied, forcing a calmness into his voice that he didn't feel. He was acutely aware of the stakes, the chaos raging outside the chamber walls, the desperate struggle between those who believed in the potential of unity and those hell-bent on destruction. With the sound of explosions ringing in their ears, they knelt before the celestial sphere. As they placed their hands atop the device, a surge of energy coursed through them, weaving an invisible thread that pulled their destinies together. The air crackled with energy, a palpable force of harmonic resonance vibrating along their skin. The history of their people reflected within the sphere, human explorers and Vora warriors, all forever entwined. But the sanctuary of the chamber wasn't without dangers. Outside, factions of renegade hunters broke through the station's outer defenses, their machine-like exosuits smashing through barriers like tissue paper, their roars echoing in an ominous rhythm of destruction. Each sound was a reminder of the ticking clock. They were running out of time. Ethan felt Ariella's grip tightening, an instinctual response to the realization of their frailty against the invading forces. Her fierce resolve filled the space around them, igniting Ethan's courage. Looking into her eyes, he saw reflections of fear intertwined with trust. "We must complete the ritual," he urged, the sincerity of his words underscored by the chaos that surrounded them. "It's our only chance to stand together." Ariella hesitated, caught between the urgency to protect their lives and the necessity of their task. But the desperate situation crystallized into clarity. "Together, then," she affirmed, the depth of her voice resonating with power. They concentrated on the celestial sphere as the essence of their beings collided within it, their thoughts, dreams, and fears merging. As they breathed in unison, the sphere flared to life, spiraling colors around them, forming an ethereal cocoon. They were lost in a flood of energy, wrestling between past and present, between the warmth of unity and the coldness of the encroaching darkness. In that moment, they were no longer just a human and a Vora. They were something far greater, an embodiment of hope. But the serenity was short-lived. The chamber doors shattered in a blinding explosion of metal and flames as the renegade hunters burst in. Figures clad in menacing black armor, adorned with cruel graffiti, and shrouded in a miasma of confidence, emerged from the smoke. Their eyes gleamed with hatred, fixated on the celestial sphere that now wielded the very connection they sought to destroy. Ethan's heart sank, the weight of their combined powers suddenly overshadowed by the reality of the attacker's resolve. He leaped to his feet, instinctually stepping in front of Ariella, a protective gesture that belied his own fear. "Stop!" boomed the leader of the hunters, a towering figure who exuded an aura of betrayal and wrath. "You think you can forge a bond while we splinter the fabric of this alliance? You will pay for your ignorance." Ariella straightened beside him, her stature unyielding. "We will not allow you to disrupt our connection." The strength in her voice resonated, weaving through the chaos like fire igniting dry grass. With unexpected decisiveness, Ethan charged, propelled by adrenaline and the desperate need to shield what they had just begun to build. He was fueled by a singular vision of hope, the possibility that humanity and Vora could find unity amidst chaos. But the hunters were relentless jaguars, circling, pouncing, vicious in their desire to sever the bonds being forged. In an impressive fusion of martial prowess, Ethan moved with surprising agility, engaging the nearest attacker, striking with calculated precision. Across the chamber, Ariella engaged in her own dance of combat, leveraging her Vora strength and agility. The rhythm of their movements melded, a frantic choreography of dissonance and harmony, where the stakes thickened beneath their feet. The celestial sphere pulsed ever brighter, its energy responding to the emotional resonance of the chamber. The fear, anger, and hope radiating through space. In between blows, Ariella shouted incantations that summoned ancient energies, calling upon the strength of her people to push back the malevolence that encroached upon them. Just as they began to gain ground, a simultaneous explosion erupted outside the station. The structure groaned from the impact, momentarily distracting both combatants and hunters alike. The vibration echoed like a whispered warning. Time was not on their side. "To the sphere!" Ethan shouted above the roar, realizing that their only hope lay in completing the ritual. He glimpsed a path of light leading back to their shared power, where the connection held the key to extinguishing their foes' dark aspirations. Ariella nodded, her expression fierce, and together they made a beeline for the spiraling core. But the hunters recovered quickly, determined to thwart their efforts. With weapons drawn and hatred bared, they blocked the path with ruthless efficiency. "Together!" Ariella shouted, her voice laced with urgency. Ethan felt an electric charge begin to weave between them, feeding off the connection already established through the subosphere. As they reached out for the luminous core, their fingers brushed against its surface, igniting an explosion of cosmic energy that enveloped them in a cocoon of light. But just as they were enveloped in the warmth of connection, a force impacted them like a freight train. The atmosphere in the ceremonial chamber crackled with an electrifying energy, the remnants of the ritual swirling around Ethan and Ariella, casting them in a brilliant glow. As their hands remained interlocked, they could feel the universe itself resonating with their connection. In that moment, transcending the turmoil outside, the very essence of their beings melded into something greater. As the echo of the last chime faded, Ariella lifted her chin, eyes ablaze with newfound resolve. "No longer will our worlds be divided," she proclaimed, her voice cutting through the haze of uncertainty like a comet slicing through the night sky. "Let this be a beacon of hope." Ethan felt the weight of her words, anchoring him in a reality he had only dared to imagine. "Together, we can redefine our futures," he affirmed, squeezing her hand tightly. He could sense the stirring of strength within him, a potency born not solely of alien magic or ancient technology, but from a shared purpose, a mutual understanding that transcended their differences. A chorus of footsteps thudded against the textured floor, and the metallic clang of weapons could be heard as the remnants of the assailants approached, poised to shatter this fragile moment of unity. "Ethan! Ariella!" A voice rang out from the fray. It was Commander Voss, a commanding figure among the human delegation. His dark uniform was emblazoned with the insignia of leadership, and despite the chaos surrounding them, a flicker of hope illuminated his otherwise stern demeanor. "Get back! We need to secure this area." "Commander, wait!" Ethan shouted, stepping forward, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. "We need to show them what we've just discovered." Voss halted, confusion flashing across his features. "What do you mean? This is a battle for survival, not a moment for revelations." "Perhaps the revelation is what can save us," Ariella interjected, her voice rising above the din. "Our connection, forged here, stands as a testament against the division that has long plagued our people." The commander glanced between them, examining their fusing energy, their intertwined hands ablaze with a luminescent spark that illuminated the dimly lit chamber. "You think this bond can quell their hunger for bloodshed?" he questioned skeptically. "It's not just about quelling," Ethan replied, stepping resolutely toward Voss. "It's about uniting. If we can stand together, we can appeal to those who only know hatred. We can end this conflict right here, right now." There was a moment of stunned silence, the echoes of chaos seemingly muted as Voss grappled with an internal war of instincts. "If we do this," he said cautiously, There's a chance it could backfire. You're asking me to gamble our lives on this bond. Then let it be our gamble, Ariella urged, her iridescent eyes shining with trust. With unity, we could ignite a movement. What if we show them the power of collaboration instead of conflict? It's our best chance. Another explosion rattled the chamber, as sparks flew from a damaged control panel, illuminating the tension of the moment. If this goes wrong, Voss muttered, but the determination in Ethan and Ariella's eyes was contagious. It won't, Ethan assured, his voice steady with conviction. Let's show them that we stand united. Wick. In unison, Voss turned, rallying the defenders behind him. Prepare to open a channel to the attackers. If we're to connect, we do this boldly. Rick. As the standoff ensued, Ariella stepped forward, her presence soothing the tension, holding the air captive. Listen to me, all of you, she said, voice clear and determined. We have endured too much suffering. It's time we rewrite our narrative. With a deep breath, Ethan joined her, feeling the resonance of her strength and determination flow through him. This was the moment to relay to their adversaries the power that lay within union. Let's connect them, mind and spirit, he called out. The troops readied themselves, eyes flickering cautiously across the shimmering expanse, the rift between humans and Vorans palpable and the tension hovering like dark clouds. Status report, Voss barked to his officers, urgency blooming in his tone. I'm patching into their communications now, a tech specialist reported. We should be able to use the station's amplification systems. Good. Let's make this loud and clear, Voss commanded. Ariella and Ethan stepped to the front of the chamber, facing the chaos that presented itself like a swirling miasma. As the substantial communication systems powered up, the room pulsated with vibration, and a shimmering barrier encircled them, signifying the sacredness of the connection they had forged. Everyone, listen! Ariella's voice echoed through the array of intercoms, amplifying their message. This is not the way forward. This cycle of violence leads to our destruction. Here we stand, added Ethan, emboldened by the atmosphere of possibility. We have felt the depths of despair, yet together we have discovered the power of unity. If we blend our strengths, the future can be brighter than we ever imagined. As the sounds of weapons clashed and shouts of war echoed from outside, a pause swept through the room, momentarily muting the chaos. Unity? A voice, filled with indignation yet laced with curiosity, crackled through the static. It belonged to one of the renegades, whose figure could barely be seen in the shadows. How can we trust you? Ariella, undeterred, stepped closer to the edge of the pulsing barrier. Trust comes from understanding and patience. We are not enemies. We are kin, forged by circumstance and fear. Let us break those chains together. Ethan glanced sideways at Ariella, feeling the same determination reflected in her eyes. With a wave of his hand, he gestured toward the world outside the perimeter. Look around you. We are all just pawns in the game of war, playing into the hands of those who thrive on our discord. We have the opportunity to create something different. As the energy of their plea hung in the air, the sounds of battle grew faint, slowly being replaced by whispers of doubt, questions arising in the minds of those engaged in conflict. Do you really want to die today? A voice from the renegade side asked, the malice in the tone betraying an urgent glimmer of vulnerability. What will your sword and shield achieve for your families, for your future? Voss seized the moment. We all wish for safety, a future free from tyranny, from fear. That's what we all want, isn't it? His voice surged through the intercom, intertwining with the currents of energy in the air. As silence held sway, Ethan felt the walls of bitterness beginning to dissolve. Ariella turned toward him, aware of the pivotal moment they were in. We need to show them our memories, she stated, her eyes glistening with possibility. That's it, Ethan exclaimed. The celestial sphere can bridge our minds. In doing so, they can see a world where collaboration flourishes over conflict. Ariella nodded, urgency pulsing through her veins. Together, we connect to amplify the memories of divergence. As they directed their thoughts into the sphere, tendrils of light expanded, reaching out toward the hearts of those engaged in battle. A vision of the shared histories of humanity and Vora emerged. Moments of laughter, joy, and community flickered like dazzling stars in the abyss. "See this?" Ariella urged, her voice finding its way to the crowd beyond the chamber. "This is what we can be. Let us move forward, hand in hand." Suddenly, the faces of the attackers shifted from hostility to contemplation, as they witnessed flickers of vulnerability flashing across the celestial expanse. The cold grip of conflict started to thaw, as glimpses of understanding washed over them. "We share fears, hopes, aspirations," Ethan continued, his convictions spreading like wildfire. "Together, we can achieve greatness. We can build worlds together." In that charged atmosphere, hearts began to open. It seemed the tides of history could indeed turn if they dared to believe, and as the memories danced across their collective consciousness, whispers of reason began to intertwine with the ferocity of battle cries. "Stop!" shouted a renegade leader, her voice breaking through the masquerade of conflict. "Can we put an end to this madness? It doesn't have to end in bloodshed." Cautiously, she took a step forward, mirroring the vulnerability now shared within the chamber. "Let's create a council to forge peace, not face destruction." The realization impacted like a supernova, illuminating the darkened divide that had long imprisoned them. Heads nodded in the gathered faction. Puzzles began falling into place. "Yes," Ariella affirmed, confidence glowing in her eyes. "Let's draft a treaty. Let us create an intergalactic coalition where our voices are felt, not silenced." Still, the shadows hovered. "Will you truly keep your word?" a voice from the back questioned, tinged with skepticism. "Above all, we must commit to the principles we've set forth. Trust must be nurtured," Ethan professed, urgency igniting his tone. "We will hold ourselves accountable, but it starts here, today." Ethan and Ariella exchanged glances, the weight of their hope bearing down on them like the gravity of collapsed stars. But beneath that weight was the sheer potential of a united future, shimmering just out of reach. Then, with the vision of negotiations before him, Voss stepped forth until he stood tall among the array of assembled bodies. "We must formalize this," he declared, raising his hand. "For those bold enough to envision a new beginning, step forward." In unison, members from both sides began to converge, once violent adversaries now aligning beside the representatives of light and hope. It was a mosaic of cultures converging, the strands of humanity and Vora interwoven, symbolizing a tie that could not be severed. "Together," Ariella said, her voice resonating within every heart, "we can be the architects of our destinies. The fabric of our futures awaits us." If you like this story based on real events, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to like it. Here you can dive into a different reality every day, where anything can happen. Comment below what kind of story you would like to hear here. Thank you very much for your attention. We are the Sci-Fi family.